Be honest with yourself for a moment. Why does a single comment from someone you barely respect still have the power to ruin your entire day? Why can years of genuine effort feel weightless compared to one moment of dismissal? The answer is uncomfortable. You are still looking outside yourself for confirmation that you exist. And as long as that remains true, you will remain a prisoner of whoever happens to speak next. The Stoics identified this trap over 2,000 years ago. They also identified the exit. Today we're going through 5 principles that build the kind of internal solidity where criticism loses its grip, rejection loses its sting, and the absence of recognition stops disturbing your peace. Not as a performance, as a genuine structural change in where you locate your sense of self. Musonius Rufus, one of the great Stoic teachers, stated directly that what you think of yourself is far more important than anything others think of you. Most men have heard something like that. Almost none of them have actually built their lives around it. That gap is where everything worth examining lives. Principle 1. Internal control is the only control that exists. Most suffering comes from a single confusion, attempting to govern what was never yours to govern. You do not control what people say about you. You do not control how they interpret your actions. You do not control whether your effort is recognized or ignored. But you control something that contains all of those things, your interpretation of them. A criticism is not painful by itself. It becomes painful at the precise moment you accept its narrative as accurate. It is like the wind. You cannot prevent it from moving. You can adjust how you stand in relation to it. Epictetus wrote that it is not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. That is not a comforting phrase. It is a demand that you take responsibility for the meaning you attach to what arrives. Imagine producing something that required genuine effort and receiving no acknowledgement for it. If your stability depends on the applause, you suffer. If your stability depends on your own honest assessment of what you produced, you remain intact. When you genuinely internalize this distinction, you stop handing your emotional state to whoever happens to be in front of you. You begin building something no external event can dismantle. Principle 2. Most criticism is not about you. Think about the last time someone's words genuinely rattled you. The automatic assumption was that their judgment revealed something true about you. But here's what is almost always actually happening. Marcus Aurelius wrote that when someone behaves poorly toward you, you should seek to understand its origin, not to excuse the behavior, to avoid being poisoned by it. A person operating from insecurity, frustration, or unexamined pain projects that interior onto whatever is in front of them. You happen to be in front of them. The content of their criticism tells you far more about their current state than it tells you about your actual worth. A disturbed lake produces waves. The waves do not reveal the nature of the water. They reveal what is disturbing it. When you hold that understanding clearly, you stop reacting to the wave as if it were a verdict. You observe it. You evaluate whether there is anything in it worth attending to, and if there is, you use it. If there is not, you let it pass without allowing it to reshape your interior. That is not coldness. That is clarity. And clarity protects you in ways that defensiveness never could. Before we continue, this is where most people quit. If you're still here, you're different. Subscribe to this channel, not for motivation, but for mental tools you can actually use. In a world of noise, we offer direction. In a world of distraction, we build discipline. Hit that subscribe button now. Let's continue. Principle 3. Your character is the only foundation that holds. Everything else shifts. Status shifts. Recognition comes and goes. Other people's assessments of you change based on factors that have nothing to do with who you actually are. The Stoics were precise about this. Virtue, the quality of your character expressed through consistent action, is the only genuine good. The only thing that cannot be taken from you by circumstance, opinion, or the passage of time. A man whose identity is built on external standing collapses when that standing is challenged. A man whose identity is built on the consistent quality of his conduct has something that external events cannot reach. He fails publicly and rebuilds. He faces criticism and evaluates it honestly. He loses recognition and continues working, because he knows what he is, and that knowledge does not require anyone else's confirmation to remain stable. When you build your identity on character rather than on how you are perceived, you stop negotiating your dignity for approval. You stop performing for audiences that were never qualified to judge you. And something in how you carry yourself changes in a way that other people notice before you do. Principle 4. Emotional self-sufficiency is not indifference. Picture a tree with roots deep enough that the weather above ground becomes largely irrelevant to its stability. It responds to conditions. It does not depend on them to stand. Most men live the opposite of that. Recognition arrives and they feel worthy. Criticism arrives and they feel inadequate. Attention is given and they feel visible. Attention is withdrawn and they feel like they disappear. That is not living. That is being moved by whatever force happens to be present. Emotional self-sufficiency does not mean you stop feeling. It means your fundamental sense of wholeness stops depending on external sources. Consider a man navigating a significant loss. The pain is real, the grief is legitimate, but there is a specific difference between a man who experiences that loss and a man who loses himself in it. One understands that what was lost was genuinely valuable and is genuinely gone. The other believes his worth, left with it. The first man grieves and continues building. The second man stops because the thing that was defining him is no longer there. When you develop the capacity to sustain yourself internally, you stop accepting the emotional equivalent of scraps. You stop reshaping your behavior to fit what will be most approved of. You begin to choose from a place of genuine sufficiency rather than from the urgency of need. And that change in posture changes what you attract entirely. Principle 5. Rational indifference to what you cannot make a necessity. This principle is consistently misread. Indifference here does not mean not caring. It means caring about the right things with the right weight. The Stoics acknowledged that recognition, comfort, and positive regard are preferable to their absence. They simply refused to make them necessities. Because the moment something preferable becomes a necessity, you have handed it authority over your peace. A man creates something with genuine care and receives harsh criticism on its presentation. If his worth depends on the reception, he collapses. If his worth is located in the integrity of what he produced and the standard he held himself to, he remains stable. He evaluates the criticism. He takes what is useful, he discards what is not, and he continues. Seneca wrote that it is not the man who has little who is poor, but the one who craves more than he needs. The thing that destroys you is not the absence of recognition. It is the belief that recognition is required for you to be whole. Remove that requirement, not by pretending you do not value acknowledgement, but by ensuring your stability does not depend on receiving it. That is the freedom the Stoics were describing. Not the absence of preference, the absence of dependency. 5 principles. Internal control over external events. Clarity about the actual origin of criticism. Character as the only foundation that holds. Emotional self-sufficiency as a structural condition. And rational indifference to what cannot be made a necessity. None of these are positions you arrive at once. They are practices. Applied daily, in the small moments, in the interactions that test them without announcing that they are tests. The forge does not produce the blade in a single strike. It produces it through repeated application of heat and pressure over time. Your character is the same. Which of these 5 is the one you most need to apply right now? Name it in the comments. Be specific. That specificity is the beginning of the actual work.